Hey, do you know what time it is? That's right. It's time for Coach Lindy's podcast. The podcast to get you moving. Hi, I'm Lindy Hutchinson, a certified life mastery consultant with the Brave Thinking Institute. As a life coach, I help others transform their life as I have mine. It's not easy, but it is possible, and it most certainly is worth it. Each week, I'll share insights that inform, inspire, and ignite in you your desire to create a life that you love. So let's find out what's going on this week. Welcome to the podcast. It's always wonderful to spend time with you. And today, I have a special treat. We're going to talk about two sisters that I had never heard of, and maybe you haven't either. It's Addie and Gussie Van Buren. Augusta and Adeline Van Buren. And what they did shook up the world, but then it disappeared. And that's why, one of the reasons why, it is so important that you and I celebrate and talk about these two amazing women. So what did they do? Well, as it turns out, I am, again, using Wikipedia information. And for those of you who are watching the video, here is a picture of Gussie. And I will show you a picture of Addie. There's Addie. And what they did was absolutely amazing. They traveled on their own motorcycles. They had Indian brand motorcycles. They traveled 5,500 miles in 2 months, 60 days. Now that by itself is impressive. But what's even more impressive is when they did it. The year was 1916. 1916. And if you think that's unusual, you're right. It was unusual that anybody was riding any real distance then. But for two women, that was, well, it actually was an outrage, which makes this story all the more fun and spectacular. So this was a time before women were allowed to vote, and they were being marginalized as always. And they wanted to show that women weren't fragile, not that we don't deserve to be treated in a fragile way, but not to underestimate the power of women, in this case, a very physical way. So these two ladies, they left. They were actually second and third women to set records across the United States. There was one lady who went before them, Effie Hotchkiss. She went from Brooklyn to San Francisco with her mom, Avis, in a sidecar. Yay! I want to find out more about her. So, these two ladies, they wanted to show, since it was during the war, that was 1916, so World War I was going on, and they wanted to show that they could participate in the actual war effort. I got way more pages than I thought. They wanted to show that they could ride as part of the national preparedness movement. In 1916, 32-year-old Augusta and 27-year-old Adeline. So these were mature grown women, young, and they wanted to prove that they could ride as well as men. Motorcycles were very popular then and worked as military dispatch riders, but women were not allowed to do that. So they wanted to show one, that they were quite capable, and also they wanted to help put in their bid to get the right to vote, which came 4 years later. Well, one of the things about this was that you had to wear pants, as you might guess, which was shocking. They were called military-style leggings and leather riding breeches, which was shocking and very wrong if you were a lady. But they weren't about to let that stop them. They left Sheepshead Bay Racetrack in Brooklyn on July 4th, riding their 1,000cc Indian Power Plus motorcycles, equipped with headlights, which apparently was a thing. And they had Firestone non-skid tires. But we need to remember that in 1916, they didn't have freeways. They didn't have paved roads. Most of the roads were dirt. Maps were very unreliable. Gas stations, they didn't have gas stations like we have now. This was really, really early. So they endured poor roads, heavy rains and mud. They went through the Rocky Mountains. And there were many who took great offense at seeing these ladies in men's, they considered, clothing. During the ride, they were arrested several times. Why? Not because of their bikes, but because they were wearing men's clothes. Now, in Colorado, they were the first women to reach the over 14,000-foot summit of Pikes Peak. And they end up getting lost 100 miles west of Salt Lake City. Fortunately, they were saved by a prospector who gave them water. And they, of course, were appreciative. They got out of there safely. And they ended up going ahead and crossing the Tijuana border just because they could. So, unfortunately, instead of being praised for this amazing testimony, this adventure, and being brave, and donning their manly clothes and getting out there and doing it, the magazines of the time described them as going on vacation, if you can imagine that. And also one national preparedness issue had a very degrading article implying that they were trying to get out of housework. So the good news is they did gain national attention, and it did help the women's suffrage movement. And as I mentioned, women were granted the right to vote with the 19th Amendment 4 years later. So throughout the years, though, unfortunately, after they had already passed, there were several institutions that awarded them acknowledgments, celebrated their accomplishments, and they ended up in 2002 being inducted into the AMA Motorcycles Hall of Fame. And the Sturgis Motorcycle Museum and Hall of Fame in 2003. Then in 2006, Bob Van Buren, the great nephew of these sisters, he and his wife Rhonda retraced the route on their Harley Davidson lowrider from New York City to San Francisco. And it was a part of a fundraiser to help fallen heroes in Manhattan and the Aerospace Museum. This goes on and on and on. Sadly, the ladies never did get the accolades that they certainly deserved, but true to their spirit and courageousness, after they did that, amongst other things, Augusta, or Gussie, became an attorney, and her sister became a lawyer. So one of the ladies, I may mix them up. No, Augusta was the pilot, and the other one was an attorney. Okay. So these were brave, bold ladies. They were feminine, but they weren't afraid to don men's clothing. And how fortunate you and I are that we have the freedoms to get out and do what we want to do much more than what those women had at the time in 1916. That is the Van Buren sisters, Augusta and Adeline. It might be worth mentioning is that these ladies were born into privilege. So they, instead of sitting back and taking it easy, not that you can't do that, but they realized they were in a situation where they could really make a difference. So they did. Good example. So from our Hey That's Funny file, comedic legend Rodney Dangerfield says, in school, they asked me to prove the law of gravity. Then they threw me out the window. Anyway, it's good to be with you, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great week, and remember to keep creating a life that you love because you deserve it. Take care. Hey, thanks for joining me this week. I look forward to being with you every week, and if you'd like to get in touch with me, please email me at coachlindy@lindyhutchinson.com. My name is spelled L-Y-N-D-I, so it's Coach Lindy, L-Y-N-D-I, at Lindy Hutchinson, LYNDIHUTCHINSON.com. I value what your input is, and I'm always open up for suggestions and ideas. If you will like and or subscribe to this podcast, that would be wonderful. I appreciate it. And I enjoy anything that you might want to send in, or if you would like some more information about coaching, send me an email and I will get back with you, and we'll talk about how you can create your best life. Have a good week. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.